Hey, everybody. Michelle is here in the building. October 31st, 2023. On a Tuesday? On a Tuesday. And I made the mistake of going out in traffic this morning because I had some things to do. And I forgot that they got some activities going on all over the place. All over the place. And this city, this city is alive. And there's always something to do, which I don't have an issue with at all. I can remember though back in my 20s, 30s, or whatever, how it was so important for me to be in on the action. What does that mean? Sorry about that. Coffee went down the wrong way. I had to be in on the action, meaning I wanted to be at every party, I wanted to be at every club, I wanted to be here, I wanted to be there. I used to like going to some of these sporting events, and this and that and the other. And I can remember the issue was always parking. That was always the issue. And then, back then, there was not as many people per se. I mean, there was a lot of people always going to a lot of these events, but usually they were, whoever was sponsoring it or hosting these events, they were pretty handled the traffic pretty well and handled the parking pretty well. Everybody was able to park appropriately and then go into the stadium or go into the club. I remember getting my vehicle towed a couple of times, going to a club one night thinking, okay, I can park here. It was like a complex, a business complex, a commercial complex. Yeah, I can park here. Yeah, I came back and my vehicle was gone. That happened to me a few times. And like I say, I did it all in my 20s and 30s. I got a lot of experience in my 20s and 30s. I met the bulk of people. I met a whole lot of people during that time. And where people were rejecting me, I was rejecting them. It was that kind of exchange of experiences, an exchange of interactions with human beings, and being in the social, being social, attempting to establish connections, and what they used to call that kind of stuff. They used to call it something, where you're connecting with people and you're attempting to either, build something together or this or that, networking. That's what they were calling it, right? Something to that effect, where people would meet up here, have drinks and conversation, meet up there afterwards and have, and hang, meet up at a club, the whole kind of blah, blah, blah. But at some point in my 40s, however, I said, okay, enough of that. I was over it. I think my time was up with that. I had to get into other experiences and figure out what else I can do to kind of, because it was boring to me after a while. That's my point. Going into the clubs, yeah, having these kind of empty conversations with people. I was in there looking for something. That's what I was in there for, to be really honest with you. I was in there looking for a particular type of person that I was interested in. Okay. And then I would go listen to the entertainment. Okay. I rarely had a drink in those clubs, though. By the way, rarely. I really, and thankfully I got out of that habit of wanting to do that because of the dangers that were associated with that. Because I think they were even though a lot of people think all this stuff is new and putting stuff in drinks, I think that was going on, well before we realized it. Maybe even in my 20s, and that was back in the 80s. I'm sure they were putting stuff in people's drink even then, right? A lot of people have alleged that with certain entertainers. So I had a purpose, really, why I was going in there. I was looking for some type of connection with someone. I'm being really honest, or some people to build something. So after a while, that got really boring. I did meet people, not let's be clear and effective. I did meet some people, and I don't know. Am I still friends with them now? I don't even know. That's irrelevant. but like I said, at some point that was enough. I had enough of it. That was it. I didn't want to be going to the DMV no more. I didn't want to go to the ATL anymore. I didn't want to do none of that. I was over it. And one thing what made me get over it so quickly was I started to feel, the hotels were starting to gross me out that I used to go into and stay, for the weekend. There was something about the cleanliness of that and this and that, something just started to bother me about all of that. And I realized, you know what, I'm just over this. I don't want to do this no more. Okay. And so all of us, hopefully at some point, or will listen to that kind of instinctual message or instinctual whatever advice. Sometimes, that's it. It's over. It's done. And you don't have to attempt to keep up with all of that. But if you choose to, that's fine. I see when I was working in a major city, we were in charge of the traffic, and what a nightmare it was. And this was recently, before I retired, dealing with the traffic, dealing with these alumni, dealing with foot traffic more. The main thing were the pedestrians. How we had to look out for the pedestrians because they had their cell phones in their hand, and they were not looking out for themselves at all. They figured because all of us were there, first responders were all there, including paramedics. Everyone had this false sense of safety. That, okay, somebody's going to find me if I fall out somewhere, or if it was just this false sense of security and safety. A lot of people figure they can just walk in the middle of the roadway, even though it was clearly visible that vehicles were still flowing. A lot of people felt like, okay, I can walk in the roadway. They're gonna stop for me. And that usually was not the case if we weren't there to, So I felt like there was more problems with certain adult pedestrians, not children. A lot of the children in those areas where all of this was going on had a rhythm to their step where they could avoid, certain accidents. Okay, because usually these events occurred in almost like in the middle of certain communities. And we won't go there. All you got to do is go to the stadiums and figure out where they are. And then that should answer your question. They're not out in the middle of the desert. How about that? These stadiums. How about that? But the kids were fine. They usually knew how to get out of traffic and, work that rhythm and work that step, the children that lived in the neighborhood where this was all being affected. It was just the adults coming in. The adults usually coming in from another community, another area. They want to get to this stadium, watch this football game, watch this rivalry, and blah, 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 blah. And I saw all ages of adults. I saw some adults that could barely, they were in wheelchairs, some of them could barely keep their balance. And, so we all have free will at the end of the day, and we can do whatever we want to do. But I know a lot of people have been killed, especially pedestrians, attempting to get to these events and not paying attention to traffic. They got their headphones in, they got their cell phones in their hands, and they think that first responders are going to be able to protect them and save them and rescue them, when first responders are dealing with thousands and thousands of the people. They think, they see surveillance. They think because surveillance is there, okay, I can leave my money in my vehicle unlocked. I can leave valuables exposed, unlocked. Okay, and they usually they have these, what do they call them? Bootleg parking attendants who will tell them that they can park on a certain lot that didn't even belong to the parking attendant. They just saw an empty lot and started collecting money and telling people they can park there, and then they would disappear. I think a lot of cities had cracked down on that. But it's just at some point, when is enough going to be enough? You decide. Is it worth it to have your vehicle broken into, to get into a crash, to get hit by a vehicle, to lose your children? That used to happen all the time. Where they would have to set up a post or set up a command post, and because they'll find children wandering. These were toddlers, but not necessarily, maybe more so adolescents, not so much toddlers, but young people losing their parent. So they would bring them to the command center and put them there safely, and then the parent, of course, will call 911. I can't find my child, and da 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 da. So my point is, at some point, when is enough going to be enough? I knew for me, it hit me to where, okay, that's it. I don't want to do none of this anymore. I don't want to go to no, like I said, I don't really need to be in no nightclub. I don't do that. I hadn't done that in a while. I mean, gosh, I can't even remember. I just decided to do something creative. Now, if I was out with somebody, we would do something against the flow. In other words, we would go to dinner earlier than most people do, and I do not go into any restaurants when it's about to close. I don't do that. And that's for the respect of the people working. They've probably been on their feet 10 and 12 hours. And then for me to come in there when they're about to close, I just don't do it. Because there's a change in energy if you pay attention to that. When you show up when people are about to close and be so demanding. I know some relatives that, we were talking about that, and they were being so demanding, but not recognizing that these people have been on their feet 10 to 12 hours. That's what I was attempting to explain to one of my relatives one day, because they were upset about the service. I said, well, consider this. That's all. Just put yourself in their shoes. That's all. You don't have to. I said, you don't have to accept any type of service that you don't like. That's your free will. Just walk out of there. Why be in an argument with somebody, though? And they are the ones supposed to be making your food? I don't like that at all. I don't hang around that kind of energy when it comes to my food. And and especially, like I said, when it comes to service. So you don't have to go to lunch at noon, do you? Can you go to lunch at 10 or maybe 2 o'clock? I used to love doing that when I was on the road as a first responder, just going in when everybody else is left. Give the service provider some time to breathe from the flow of the lunch hour traffic, and then I would usually show up at 2, maybe 3, and everything was cleared out, and I was usually the only one because I will usually dine by myself in uniform. I was very uncomfortable going in uniform with others and dining in a restaurant. I just don't do it. But anyway, so be creative about things. Go to places against the flow. When people are leaving, you show up, or give it a little time and you show up. Kind of navigate your schedule, manage your schedule your way. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, my goodness. Or especially, I'm not sure about small businesses, but for the entrepreneur that has that kind of flexibility, they work at home or they work in an office, but they're still able to manage their own schedule, or just change up the plans, make it exciting. Just take do something spontaneous. I love doing spontaneous things. Just to make everything a little bit more, because what my point is this: you have to get out of certain routines and give your thoughts something more to contemplate, to cultivate, so it can provide you with other openings of experiences. Okay, that's all. You need experiences. And I know a lot of people in their 30s and below are going to be resistant of that, and I pick it up, and that's fine. Because let me tell you about my 30s. My 30s, like I said, my 30s were filled with so much activity, filled with so much so many experiences, and a lot of failure, of course, on top of that. But it went by quick. Before I knew it, I was waking up one day and I was in my 40s. 30s one day, woke up 40s. And when I was in my 40s, a lot of the mistakes or the cause and effect, the effects started happening, more so with my finances. All that started catching up to me. Okay. Some of the irresponsibilities of that. The bills had to be paid. And to the best of my ability, as I paid all of my bills. But in some cases, I had to just reap what I've sown. And as far as irresponsibility, lose property or lose this or lose that. Something materialistic. I prefer the intimacy of, one-on-one. I don't need any more of that anymore. Or being alone or aloneness, which is what I have sometimes as well. So, and remember what I said about aloneness. You can have your partner sitting right across from you or over there doing their thing, and you are in your aloneness doing your thing. That's the kind of respect that you hope to build, that someone respects that. That's the kind of loyalty you expect from someone that'll stick around and allow you to develop. You're going to be developing for the rest of your life anyway. There's no stopping of development. There's no stopping of knowledge. There is no stopping you now at all. So, yeah, so plan differently, park, having picnics in the park. I know the weather may be harsh for some people. You just got to be creative. That's all. And talk among yourselves, if you're in a partner with somebody, what do they like? What do you like? Blah, blah, and just kind of come to some type of agreement or compromise or whatever it takes. But remember, it's no longer business as usual. You don't have to go to every football game every year. But if you choose to, that's your choice. But consider that usually these stadiums are in the middle of communities of working people. And these people are attempting to get to work. And like I said, I look out the window. So I looked out the window as I was leaving. I said, "Oh my God, maybe I shouldn't go," because I saw that all the roadway was stacked with people parked on the city right away. And accordingly, they're not supposed to be there, but there are no signs telling them not to. Everything was filled up all from a couple of blocks that I saw, and I said, "Gosh. Should I go? I decided to go anyway. And yes, traffic was packed. I saw people going into certain places. And so there is an event going on. I don't know what event. I mean, I just don't keep up with it anymore. I don't find that it's necessary that I keep up with that. And sure enough, as soon as I got back, there was no parking in my own parking lot. So I just went up to a guy. I knew he didn't live here. And I kindly asked him, well, not kindly, I was kind of like a little bit demanding that he move out of I said, this is private property. He knows, private property. Would you mind getting out of this parking space so I can pull in because I live here, blah, blah, blah. And then he looked at me, he says, can you say please? And then I recognized, oh yes, I apologized to him. And I said, yes, sir, and I spoke to him in a kind and gentle way, because that's what happens. I'm telling you, when you are among so much traffic and people, you start losing the proper exchanges with people, And so yes, I did apologize to him, then we started having a cordial conversation, because he was here to do whatever he had to do, but he didn't live here. Just the whole point of the matter, he didn't live here, and blah 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 blah. And he was and so a lot of people still park in places where they're not supposed to park. I used to do the same thing. That's why I know that. And a lot of people know how to get past ordinances and certain kind of violations and get away with stuff, And so the point of the matter is that, just be considerate of others, those of you that want to participate in going to a club. Okay, hey, it's fun. Or going to house parties. I remember in my old community, I was responsible for taking care of the right of way, that was owned by the city. I was still responsible for taking care of it, mowing it, but anybody could park on the right of way. And that's what was happening. People would have their parties. They didn't want nobody in their yard, but they wanted to take advantage of the city right away so that nobody would get in, mess up their grass and their whatever they had going on in their lawns. You see what I mean there? So yeah, let them park on the city right away because they knew that they were not going to be responsible for it. They knew I was. So that's what I mean. Be considerate of others. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. What if somebody was parking all over your lawn and lot and blah, 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 and you can't get in and out? And so my point is, consider doing something differently. How about that? Where it's not so many people. So if everybody's here, then that means there's an opening somewhere else, hopefully, where you can do something else. Be creative. That's all I'm saying. Just be creative. Be considerate. Think a little differently. If you want to bring some more experiences in your life, you have to have the thoughts to help you cultivate it. Otherwise, you're gonna be unconscious, and you're gonna be faced with things you don't want to be dealing with, that you keep stuffing down, and not resolving. I mean, eventually it's gonna come to the surface, but at least give your thoughts something to cultivate it and contemplate about it, so that you can properly handle it and manage it and resolve it. Okay, so I hope that all makes sense. I hope everybody have a enjoy your day, enjoy each other, and I'm going ahead and send peace and love all over the stars and moon and mountain. And trust me, I will be back.